High Admiral Vex Thor's crystalline exoskeleton shimmered with barely contained excitement as he presented his findings to the Kraxan War Council. The massive holographic display showed Earth's public satellite network, power infrastructure, and what the Kraxans believed to be the planet's entire defense fleet. "Look at these primitives," he gestured with his primary appendages, voice resonating through his translator. "Still using fossil fuels and nuclear fission. Their most advanced vessels barely achieve light speed." The assembled council members chittered in agreement, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with amusement. Commander Rilta, head of military intelligence, stepped forward. Her adaptive camouflage rippled as she projected additional data streams. "Their encryption relies on mathematical algorithms we broke centuries ago. We've been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts for decades. Reality shows, social media, primitive AI assistants. They're practically begging to be conquered." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Fleet Admiral Marcus Rivera watched the Kraxan transmission with growing satisfaction. The massive quantum computing core hummed quietly as it continued to intercept and decrypt the aliens' supposedly unbreakable communications. "They're still broadcasting on quantum channels," Dr. Maya Patel, head of Project Phantom, observed with a slight smirk. "They haven't even realized those have fundamental limitations." She gestured at the holographic displays, showing Earth's true defensive capabilities, technologies that had been carefully hidden from any possible observers for the past 50 years. The room's central display showed hundreds of ships that, according to every known law of physics, couldn't possibly exist. The Ghost Fleet hung in quantum superposition, invisible to conventional detection methods, their advanced zero-point energy drives making them capable of rewriting local spacetime at will. "Status report on the quantum mesh," Rivera asked, studying the tactical overlay. Lieutenant Commander James Wong, his quantum systems specialist, brought up a new set of readings. "The mesh is stable, sir. Every Ghost Fleet vessel is maintaining perfect quantum entanglement. The moment the Kraxans cross the lunar defense line, we can begin introducing localized physics violations into their fleet formation." Rivera nodded, remembering the decades of preparation that had led to this moment. While the world publicly struggled with climate change and energy crisis, the best minds on Earth had been quietly solving problems that their would-be conquerors hadn't even recognized as problems yet. In high orbit, Captain Diana Reyes ran another systems check on the GFS Nightshade, one of the Ghost Fleet's most advanced vessels. The ship existed in a quantum superposition state that made it effectively invisible to conventional sensors. Even human technology from just 20 years ago would have been unable to detect its presence. "Engineering reports all systems nominal," her XO, Commander David Chen, reported. "Quantum drive is maintaining stable null space coherence, and the reality distortion generators are primed." Reyes allowed herself a small smile. The Kraxans were about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging a species by its public face. Humanity had known they weren't alone for over 50 years, ever since they'd detected the first alien probes entering the solar system. Instead of announcing their discovery, they'd turned it into an advantage. Back in the Kraxan War Council, High Admiral Vex Thor was finalizing the invasion plans. Their orbital defenses are pathetically obvious. Their ships still rely on kinetic weapons and primitive energy beams. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. "Should we prepare the standard peaceful integration announcement?" asked the Public Relations Director, their chromatophores shifting to display various proposed message formats. Yes, Vex Thor waved a limb dismissively. "The usual resistance is futile, but we come in peace declaration. Let them think they have a choice in the matter." None of them noticed the quantum fluctuations in their supposedly secure networks, the tiny irregularities that would have told them their every word was being monitored, analyzed, and occasionally met with poorly suppressed laughter by the human defenders preparing to give them the surprise of their existence. The stage was set. The Kraxans thought they were about to conduct a simple subjugation of a primitive species. Humanity was about to demonstrate why you should never judge a civilization's capabilities by its Netflix catalog. The Kraxan invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their crystalline ships refracting starlight in a dazzling display of technological superiority. 3,000 vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to level a continent, arranged in what their tactical manuals considered an absolutely unstoppable assault pattern. High Admiral Vexthor stood on his command deck, all four arms clasped behind his back in what he considered a suitably dramatic pose. "Begin broadcasting on all frequencies," he ordered. "Let's give these primitives their one chance to surrender gracefully." In Earth's underwater command center, Fleet Admiral Rivera watched the Kraxan fleet's arrival with the calm demeanor of someone who had already read the last page of the book. "Right on schedule," he noted, checking his watch. "Dr. Patel, are you recording this? The Academy will want it for their How Not to Invade Earth training sessions." "Every quantum fluctuation," Dr. Patel confirmed, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she fine-tuned the Ghost Fleet's quantum entanglement grid. "Though I still think we should have named it Operation Surprise Physics Lesson." The Kraxan's message boomed across all known frequencies. "Attention primitive Earth vessels. Your planet is now under the protection of the Kraxan Empire. Resistance is futile but unnecessary. We offer you the gift of civilization." Rivera nodded to his communications officer. "Send our prepared response. And Lieutenant, make it sound scared." The response that reached the Kraxan fleet was a masterpiece of acted incompetence, static-filled, badly encrypted, and transmitted on frequencies that practically screamed primitive technology. This is Earth Defense Command. We reject your offer. Please leave our system, or we'll be forced to defend ourselves." Commander Rilta's bioluminescent patches pulsed with amusement as she analyzed the transmission. "Their encryption is even worse than our estimates suggested. They're still using binary code." "Launch the first wave," Vexthor commanded. "Standard subjugation pattern. Let's show them what real space warfare looks like." The first wave of Kraxan ships swooped toward Earth's visible defenses, a scattered collection of seemingly outdated satellites and patrol vessels that began to retreat in what appeared to be panic. Their movements were erratic, their responses uncoordinated, exactly what you'd expect from a primitive species facing superior technology. Captain Diana Rice watched from the quantum-shifted space where the GFS Nightshade hung invisible, her crew maintaining perfect silence despite the growing urge to laugh. The Kraxans were following the script perfectly, pushing their fleet into exactly the formation Earth's defenders had spent months planning for. "Target lock on their command and control nodes," Commander Chen reported quietly. "Reality distortion fields charged and ready, waiting for the signal." Throughout the Ghost Fleet, similar reports were being quietly logged. Hundreds of ships that didn't officially exist held position in quantum superposition, their advanced weapons primed to introduce the Kraxan Empire to some very uncomfortable new laws of physics. In the underwater command center, Dr. Patel's quantum monitoring systems tracked the invisible dance of particles and probabilities that kept the Ghost Fleet hidden. "Quantum coherence holding steady at 99.99%, she reported. "The mesh is ready. They still haven't detected a single anomaly. Time to show them why you shouldn't bring antimatter drives to a quantum mechanics fight," Rivera said, allowing himself a small smile. He opened a secure channel to all Ghost Fleet vessels. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Prepare to execute Operation Physics Lesson. Let's teach our visitors why they should have paid more attention in quantum theory class." High Admiral Vexthor was just about to order the second wave forward when his sensor officer reported something strange. "Sir, we're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in Sector 7. It's probably just their primitive sensors trying to scan us, but—" "Note it for the science division," Vexthor said dismissively. "Probably just another sign of their technological inadequacy. Press the attack." That's when reality itself decided to remind the Kraxan Empire that the laws of physics were more like guidelines, guidelines that humanity had learned to rewrite. The first sign that something had gone catastrophically wrong with the Craxan invasion came when their quantum targeting systems began displaying error messages that shouldn't have been possible. Across their fleet, advanced combat computers started showing increasingly bizarre readings. Error. Quantum uncertainty principle has encountered unexpected certainty. Warning. Target location exists in negative probability space. Alert. Schrödinger's cat has lodged a formal complaint. In the Craxan flagship's command center, the sensor officer's crystalline form vibrated with confusion. High Admiral, our quantum scanning arrays are detecting nothing. But it's the most aggressive nothing I've ever seen. Vexthor's exoskeleton shifted to a troubled shade of violet. Explain. Sir, according to our sensors, there are regions of space that are too empty. They're registering negative probability values. That's not supposed to be possible. That's when humanity decided to introduce themselves properly. Throughout the Craxan fleet, every display screen simultaneously switched to showing what appeared to be an ancient Earth animation, a spinning hourglass with the message Installing Reality Update 2.0. Fleet Admiral Rivera's voice came through on all frequencies, including several that the Craxans had believed were theoretically impossible to access. Attention Craxan Invasion Force. We noticed you're running an outdated version of physics. Allow us to help you upgrade. The Ghost Fleet decloaked, but decloak doesn't quite capture what actually happened. It was more like reality hiccuped and suddenly remembered it had forgotten to mention the presence of several hundred warships that had been there all along. They didn't appear with anything as crude as a shimmer or a flash. They simply were, occupying spaces that the Craxan sensors insisted were empty yet somehow managed to be unsettlingly present. Impossible. Commander Rilta's bioluminescent patches strobed in distress. Their technology. They can't. They're supposed to be primitives. On the GSS Nightshade, Captain Reyes gave the order they'd all been waiting for. All ships, you are weapons free. Let's show them what those primitive humans can do. The Ghost Fleet's weapons were unlike anything the Craxans had ever encountered. They didn't fire energy beams or projectiles. They fired localized violations of the laws of physics. One Craxan cruiser found itself occupying the same space as its own quantum probability field. Another discovered that the strong nuclear force had temporarily decided to take a coffee break within its hull. Status report. Vexthor demanded as his flagship systems began displaying increasingly surreal errors. Sir, his tactical officer's voice quavered. The humans aren't just beating us. They're debugging us. Like we're some kind of software program running on outdated hardware. Throughout the Craxan fleet, ships began experiencing what could only be described as existential errors. One destroyer suddenly found itself existing last Tuesday. A cruiser squadron reported that their quantum drives had achieved consciousness and were now demanding better working conditions. Dr. Patel watched the chaos unfold from Earth's command center, monitoring the quantum distortion fields with professional satisfaction. The physics violations are propagating exactly as predicted, she reported. Their fleet's quantum coherence is completely destabilized. Should we show them what we did with those primitive kinetic weapons they were so dismissive of? Lieutenant Commander Wong suggested with a grin. Rivera nodded. Why not? They came all this way for a demonstration. The Ghost Fleet's main weapons powered up. They looked deceptively simple, just standard railguns. But these railguns fired something far more interesting than mere projectiles. Each shell existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously occupying every possible trajectory until impact forced a collapse of its probability wave. How do you dodge something that's hitting you from every possible angle at once? Rivera mused aloud as another Craxan ship discovered that causality had become more of a polite suggestion than a law within its hull. High Admiral Vexthor watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet was systematically dismantled by technology that his best scientists were still insisting couldn't possibly exist. Ships weren't just being destroyed. They were being turned into object lessons in advanced quantum mechanics. News of the Kraxan fleet's predicament spread through the galactic community faster than a quantum-entangled meme. In the Galactic Council's emergency session, representatives from a dozen spacefaring civilizations watched the battle feeds with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to outright terror. The Centaurian ambassador spat out his ceremonial nectar. They did what with quantum mechanics? According to these readings, their science attaché reported, mandibles clicking nervously, they turned it into an operating system. And then they gave it a blue screen of death. Back in the battle zone, the Kraxan fleet's formation had devolved from textbook perfect to abstract expressionist. Ships tried desperately to maintain position, while dealing with the fact that space-time around them had developed a sense of humor. Their quantum targeting systems now displayed what appeared to be a retrospective of Earth's cat videos, interspersed with physics equations that made their science officers question their entire education. "Launch the reserve fleet," Vex Thor commanded, his exoskeleton now an interesting shade of desperate. They can't possibly maintain these physics violations across a wider battle space. Dr. Patel's voice came through on all channels, sounding almost apologetic. "Actually, we can. You see, while you were watching our Netflix shows, we were solving some rather interesting problems in quantum field theory. Would you like to see what happens when we extend our probability manipulation field to cover your entire fleet at once?" The Kraxans did not, in fact, want to see this. Unfortunately for them, humanity decided to show them anyway. Captain Rice directed the Nightshade through a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible, her ship phase shifting through probability space like a quantum ghost. "All ships, execute formation Omega. Let's show them our synchronized swimming routine." The Ghost Fleet moved in perfect coordination, their drives leaving ripples not in space but in probability itself. They didn't so much fly through the Kraxan formation as they did redistribute the statistical likelihood of where ships ought to be. In Earth's command center, Lieutenant Commander Wong monitored the quantum field distortions with growing excitement. "Sir, the Kraxans are attempting to launch their reserve fleet. Should we show them our new quantum entanglement mines?" Rivera smiled. "Why not? They're already having an existential crisis. Might as well make it a comprehensive one." The mines were beautiful in a mathematically terrifying way. They didn't explode so much as they created localized regions where the probability of a ship existing approached zero. Kraxan vessels didn't explode. They simply became increasingly unlikely until they weren't there anymore. "This is impossible." Vex Thor's science officer wailed, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. "Their technology, it violates every known law of physics." "Correction," Dr. Patel's voice came through again, now sounding like a patient teacher explaining a particularly obvious concept. "It violates every law of physics, you know. We found some new ones and didn't tell anyone. It seemed only fair. You were all so busy watching our public broadcasts. We didn't want to interrupt." The Ghost Fleet's next attack pattern was particularly inspired. They didn't just defeat the Kraxan's reserve fleet, they turned it into a practical demonstration of advanced quantum mechanics. Ships found themselves becoming teaching examples of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, their position and momentum becoming mutually exclusive concepts. As the last Kraxan ships either retreated, surrendered, or became interesting footnotes in quantum physics textbooks, High Admiral Vex Thor stood on his flagship's bridge, watching his empire's greatest fleet reduced to a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating primitive species. "Should we?" His tactical officer's voice quavered. "Should we try the antimatter torpedoes?" "Oh, please do." Dr. Patel's voice came through again, now sounding like someone trying not to laugh. "We've been wanting to test our antimatter recycling system. Did you know you can use quantum tunneling to convert weapons-grade antimatter into clean energy? We're thinking of publishing a paper about it." In the Galactic Council chamber, the emergency session had devolved into chaos. The Arcturus delegation was demanding an immediate review of all human entertainment broadcasts for hidden scientific messages. The Sirius Confederation was frantically checking if their own quantum technology might have been compromised. The Proxima representative was simply sitting there, repeatedly murmuring, "They weaponized Schrödinger's cat," in tones of horrified admiration. Fleet Admiral Rivera stood in Earth's command center, watching the final phases of the battle with quiet satisfaction. "Lieutenant Commander Wong, please send the Kraxans our official response to their invasion attempt." Throughout the remaining Kraxan fleet, every screen displayed a message. "Thank you for participating in Earth's Advanced Physics Demonstration Program. Please rate your experience. Hashtag completely enlightening. Hashtag mostly enlightening. Hashtag somewhat enlightening. Hashtag error 404. Reality not found. P.S. Next time, try watching our scientific journals instead of our reality shows." Captain Rise and the Ghost Fleet conducted one final maneuver, their ships moving in perfect formation to spell out Class Ds and ISSED in quantum probability waves across the solar system. It would take Kraxan scientists centuries to fully understand how they'd done it. In the aftermath, as the galactic community struggled to come to terms with humanity's true capabilities, Earth's diplomatic corps found themselves unusually busy. Suddenly, every spacefaring civilization wanted to discuss cultural exchange programs and joint scientific ventures. Dr. Paddle stood before the Galactic Scientific Council a week later, preparing to give a lecture titled Quantum Mechanics. "You're doing it wrong." The audience was packed with the brightest minds from a dozen civilizations, all eager to understand how humans had managed to turn their fundamental understanding of physics into an operating system. "Before we begin," she said with a smile, "I should mention that everything you're about to learn is already publicly available in our scientific literature. You just had to look past the cat videos." Back on Earth, Fleet Admiral Rivera sat in his office, reading reports of the battle's aftermath. The Kraxan Empire had formally apologized for the unfortunate misunderstanding and was requesting permission to send their top scientists to study under human mentors. 3 other empires had already proposed defensive alliances, and the Galactic Entertainment Network was running a special titled Earth, the reality show that wasn't. "Sir," his aide interrupted, "the Galactic Council is requesting our presence at an emergency session. Apparently, several civilizations are concerned about their own quantum technology, now that they know what it's supposed to be capable of." Rivera smiled. "Tell them we'll be happy to help. After all, that's what advanced civilizations do. We help the developing ones catch up." As humanity stepped onto the galactic stage, not as primitives to be conquered, but as teachers to be respected, the Ghost Fleet remained vigilant, their ships dancing through quantum probability spaces that other civilizations were only beginning to understand existed. They were humanity's silent guardians, ready to remind anyone who forgot that judging a civilization by its entertainment choices was a dangerous mistake. In the decades that followed, pulling a Kraxan became galactic slang for catastrophically underestimating someone. The incident was studied in military academies across the galaxy, usually under the title How Not to Invade Earth. And somewhere in the quantum foam between possibilities, the Ghost Fleet continued its patrol, keeping watch for the next would-be conqueror who needed a physics lesson. As for the Kraxans, they eventually rebuilt their fleet, this time with human-designed quantum drives. High Admiral Vex Thor retired to write his memoirs, titled The Day Physics Stopped Making Sense. It became a bestseller, particularly among physics students who appreciated its detailed descriptions of exactly how human technology had violated what they thought were immutable laws of nature. The end.